Hey guys, today I'm going to be discussing about Kamala Harris, more specifically her record as Attorney General of the state of California. Before we get into this, I just want to say that I'm all for people growing and learning. I think that it's important, especially as a politician. You know, you want to be able to grow and learn and be able to take responsibility. And I think that a big part of that is being able to admit your own fault. And so I just want to get that out of the way. And I also just want to say that I understand that being Attorney General of any state, especially the biggest one in our country, the state of California, is a tough job and you will always make mistakes. So let's get into this. Kamala Harris has been state of attorney general for over a decade now. She definitely seems more qualified to lead our country as VP due to her credentials of being state of attorney of the state of California. However, not everything is perfect about her. She blocked DNA evidence that could have freed a man, for all we know, from death row. Back in 2019, during their presidential debates in July, I believe, Tulsi Gabbard even called out Kamala Harris for these accusations.
Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
All right, let's go over some points that Tulsi Gabbard made about Kamala Harris. First of all, one of her claims was that Kamala Harris blocked evidence that would have freed a man from death row. Now, this is true. There's a man named Kevin Cooper who was accused of a murder in 1983, and he actually came within hours of execution back in 2004 after Kamala Harris opposed the DNA. Let's move on to her next point, which is merit and truth to it. A claim that Tulsi Gabbard made on Kamala Harris was that she would keep people in for longer periods of times for more free cheap labor. This has some merit and truth to it because back in 2005, Kamala Harris launched a Back on Track initiative which reduced recidivism amongst first-time drug trafficking defendants. A catch, though, was that all participants had to serve a minimum of 220 hours of community service. Now, we can all be honest and say that this is quite a lot. 220 hours of any sort of physical labor is a lot, and you can get quite a lot done with this. Think about that. 5 people, 1,000 hours of community service. But I would also like to say that this Back on Track initiative really did help out a lot of people. I think I see that this is where Tulsi Gabbard is coming from, that Kamala Harris did keep people in for free labor, because 220 hours of community service does reflect that. Kamala Harris further got called out and was pointed that she fought for cash bail, which cash bail has some good things and some bad things, as I'll get into right now. Some pros about cash bail is that it does reduce crime. It makes it more likely so people won't commit crime because nobody likes to pay that cash. And you never have to pay any extra fees. It's just the cash up front. However, though, there are some cons to cash bail. It affects poor people more because they may not be able to afford to be able to pay the cash. And if they can't, then they won't be able to meet up with their legal team if they have one. That's a real big issue, is that if you have the money to afford to bail, you can always meet up with your legal team and set up a plan. But if you're in jail, you can't really do that. You only get your one phone call and that's it. So there really are some real advantages and disadvantages. And it kind of sets up this inequality in our class system, because if you have excess cash, you can get away with a lot more crime and you can get away with a lot more cases because you are able to pay your cash bail and you can meet up with your legal team and set up a legal defense. However, if you're poor, you may not be able to do the same thing. Now, let's take a look at Kamala Harris's response to these allegations.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is is
you.
why, and because I know that criminal justice
Thank
system
you,
is
Senator.
so broken, that I am an advocate for what
Thank
we
you,
need to
Senator.
do to not
Your
only
time is up.
decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to
As we just heard Kamala point out, she did in fact start a program called Back on Track, as I mentioned before, that would allow criminals and first-time offenders to re-enter society and get jobs, even though there are 220 hours of community service that they must do. Maybe she looks at this like it's a punishment for what they have done. She also, at the end there, you also heard her talk about how she's an advocate for decriminalizing and legalizing marijuana in the U.S., which her stance has definitely changed on that, considering that she has locked up many people when it comes to marijuana charges. So it is good to see her stance just changing over time. I believe that she has grown as a person from where she was back in 2004 to where she is now in 2020. And yeah, I just want to go on ahead and say that it is nice to see her admit that she, or not admit, I guess, more of just advocate for legalizing weed, but I would have hoped that she would have been more clear and would have maybe said that maybe she was in the wrong for what she did back in the early 2000s, and that she has seen how times have changed. Now I know what you're wondering, why does this matter? Because it's been quite a while since the presidential debates. But I just want to say that if we are electing these people into office, that we should have our officials be well recognized, and we should be able to recognize their mistakes, and we should be able to recognize their good. We should be able to see what they did well and what they did wrong at. We should be able to talk about it, and we should be able to learn about it, so that way we can further help and revise our system. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and to share this to all your friends. I do hope to be able to make another video, and I'm really enjoying this. Thank you for listening.